Most people try to improve their English accent by talking faster or by using fancier words. But if you master just a few key English sounds, your message becomes clear. And I mean real clear. All right, let's get started with a very common American English phrase. Has your week been good or has it been crazy? Let's listen to the intonation first. Has your week been good or has it been crazy? Has your week been good or has it been crazy? So here you have two phrases. Two phrases, you'll have two primary stress words. So here we have good and crazy. An adjective, two syllables, tends to be stress on the first syllable. Try it for yourself and feel the music. Go a little higher than you might typically. Has your week been good or has it been crazy? The reason this went up here is because you're giving two choices. If I'm giving you multiple choices, would you like some tea, some coffee, or some cookies? I'm asking you one of those three options. So I could have a list of 10 options. I would likely go up 9 times. And at the end, letting you know I'm done with options, I'm going to go down. If I only have two choices, are you coming home after school or are you going to go to your friends? Then I might have two options going up and down. The down is to let you know I've shown you all my options. I've said them all. I'm done now. Now you can answer. The H in has is fully pronounced. It is an airflow sound. Some people have more of a friction in their first language. So meaning the back of their throat will create a friction. And it's an audible friction sound. In English, although their air is flowing, there is no friction sound. So when we look at my little friend over here, for H, what's happening is the air is coming out through the trachea and out through the oral cavity. H is going to have pretty much no restriction. This is a very open airway here. For a frictional, you would likely feel some kind of vibration in the back of your throat. For some people, it might be more here near the velum, back of the tongue. It might even be further back near the pharyngeal wall. But either way, you're going to feel friction. How? If that's you, all we're going to do is just relax our throat. Just like breathe out. How? The word has is not stressed in this example, so the vowel can be reduced to hz. Instead of has your, you can hear that reduction. Hz. The S is voiced in this word. It is not an S. Has. Hz. We have a Z to Y transition. So this is where you may hear an assimilation. So that Z to Y can sound like a zh. So it can sound like that, zh, as in beige, hzr. The O-U-R, again, is unstressed. It's an unstressed word. So we can reduce that to yer. Hzr. So I can do a little zh and sound. The R is rhotic though, so be sure to curl your tongue. Otherwise, it will just sound like zh, week. We want the in American English always. So curl your tongue back. Hzr. So here what you'll see is an example of a flat kind of bunched tongue as an R, and this is that rhotic kind of curled retroflex R. If you struggle, I don't usually recommend just the bunched R where you pull your tongue back. That's this one here, only because it causes a lot of difficulty and it can be sounding exactly the same if you try. Often by just curling and pulling your tongue back, you can create that rounded bowl shape with the tongue very similar to what you see in this example here. Keeping the tongue tip, though, away from the alveolar ridge or anywhere on the palate. We want to keep it low. The R links to the W. You're weak, you're weak, you're weak. The K links to the B. The K is unreleased, meaning we don't say weak bin, but we're going to let the air not really escape at all until the B is produced. Weak bin. The bean we know already is free variant. I or E, your choice. The N is going to link to the G. Good, 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 been good. No stopping. The double O in good is what we call an upsilon vowel. This is the symbol. It is a neutral sound. Let me explain. Typically, when you see a double O, the natural inclination is to create an oo, like the word pool, P-O-O-L. But in this word good, the lips are not in an oo position. They're actually, there's no example here, it's a little bit less rounded than oo. So think of if oo was 100% rounded lip, you want to go 10% rounded, just a little. It's very neutral, not open, your jaw is not open, you're still keeping your jaw closed. The tongue is in a neutral position, and our lips are not rounded. I think that's ultimately what I want to get across here. Ooh, good. The D in good links to the or, sounding like door, but the or, since it's not stressed, can be reduced to just the vowel. Think of it like The has, again, in a reduced form, can sound like hz. You have your A as a schwa and your Z. Hz. Your I is the low not E. So pull your tongue lower, comparing eat with it. It has a lower tongue position. So the middle of your tongue is relaxed. Let's take a look at the side of the mouth and what that means for articulation. Over here is the E sound. Right here. That's where the middle of the tongue is very high in the palate. So you can see this is the palate or the top of the mouth, and the middle of the tongue is quite high in the E position. You should feel your tongue is quite tense. E. The sound is right here. So that means our tongue is slightly lower, slightly more relaxed. Not by a lot, by a very, very small amount. The T, it has a consonant following it. So it's going to sound like a glottal T, so stopped in the throat. And a stopping. Bean, again, bin or bean, both are fine. And crazy. Now this has an R blend. This means that there are two consonants together, which makes it the blend, and one happens to be an R. This is very difficult for especially those who do a natural trill. So it might sound like crazy, because the tongue tip is going right to the alveolar ridge. To avoid this, what we can do as a little trick is to imagine that there's an ER in the middle. So think about the C. I'm going to put it as a K because IPA. Think of now, ER. And say cur as you curl your tongue tip. Cur. Once you have that figured out, go on with the rest of the word. Crazy. giving your tongue enough time to get into that curled position by adding in this little element. The Y at the end is pronounced as an E. That's our lowercase I in IPA. There's your E. Crazy. So let's try it together. Slow. Has your week been good or has it been crazy? Has your week been good or has it been crazy? Practice for yourself to master this American English question. Now, I wanted to take a second and just ask you a favor. If you could help me out, I have a very big goal. I want to hit 50,000 subscribers. I know I'm a very small channel, but I want to be able to provide more people with accurate instruction and detailed lessons, so students don't have to struggle and stay stuck with their English. So if you could help me by subscribing, you'd be doing us all a huge favor. And if you did that, thank you. Let's analyze another English sentence. I saw something that totally reminded me of you. In this sentence, which word stands out as emphatic or stressed? I saw something that totally reminded me of you. I saw something that totally reminded me of you. You feel that kind of high on totally reminded you. There's a rise in pitch, an elongation, a full vowel here. And you can choose to stress whichever word you feel has the most meaning. I could choose reminded. I saw something that totally reminded me of you. Or I could choose you. I saw something that totally reminded me of you. It's really how you want to express your meaning. So there's no set rule. It's just that there tends to be the meaningful words, which tend to be nouns, and they tend to be the one word, the primary stress, the word that gives you the most meaning or expresses what you want to say the most. In the word saw, this AW is very tricky for people because they see a W and they think, ow, ow, I saw. But in this case, we're looking at an ah vowel. Saw, saw. An open lip, relaxed position. I saw, ah. This is very similar to other words like la. There may be also the alternative of an open O if there's a slight more rounding, but it's definitely not the ow that often, if English is not your first language, that's often substituted with. The word saw links to the next word, so you're going to hear this something, sauce, something. Sounds very much like sauce. I saw something, saw something. The O in some is pronounced as the caret vowel, not the O, so, something, something. So in this case, you're going to want to keep your lips in a very neutral position rather than rounded and tight. O, some. The TH here is a voiceless TH. Tongue is out between the teeth, blowing. Something, something. If the airflow is too short, even if your tongue is out, it will sound more like something. Sounds a lot like a T. So get some airflow to blow. Something. Here you have the low I, pulling your tongue in a low position, followed by the final back of the throat, nasality. So using the back of the tongue near the back of the mouth, not the tip of your tongue for an N, with a G, which is quite common. People will think that they see an N and a G, it's an N and a G, but actually in English, this is one sound produced in the back of the tongue, and it's entirely different. This links to that, that, which is a voiced TH sound. That's our symbol. Airflow continues, but add your voice too. That. If your airflow is not long enough, it will sound like a D. That dat, dat, dat. So your tongue tip is touching something, creating a stop. We want a friction or a fricative sound. That, that, that. So there should be airflow. As the T links to another T, some interesting things happen here. The T in that, because it's followed by another T, is produced as a glottal. That, that, that totally. The T here is produced as a T. But here we've got that, that, the airflow stops in the throat. Let's take a look at the anatomy of this sound. Here you're not seeing the vocal folds where the actual voice is created, but it's right here. We're going to create this closing of airflow. So this is that glottis area. So that's why it feels like it's in the throat. That. There's a closing of the vocal folds, which is creating a stop in the airflow, and that's the sound you're hearing. It's just like when you say oh, and there's a tension feeling. It's that tightening here. Oh, is very different than toe with a T. Oh. So this is where that glottal T is occurring. So it sounds like that totally. The T here is in the unstressed syllable, and it's surrounded by vowel and vowel. So that's why you'll hear a D sound. It's a flap T. And it sounds like a D. Totally. The A is unstressed, and you'll hear a little schwa there. Instead of toda. Totally. The final Y, if you see Y's at the ends of words, that's your E sound. A word like crazy or happy or hungry, those Y's at the end are that E high tongue position. The R here, feeling that tongue curl in a rhotic position. Tongue tip curled back. The E is part of a prefix, re, which is attached to a word. You can have re on lots of different words, like retired. This, since it's not stressed, can be produced as a schwa. So you'll actually hear reminded, rather than reminded most of the time. Reminded, I would say, is a little bit less likely, but you can say both. Both are totally your option. But if you're listening to English speakers, you'll hear reminded quite a lot. The DED. Anytime you see an ED at the end of a word, you have three choices. You could produce ED as either a T, a D, or you would produce both the E and the D. So, id. Three options. And to choose which one, it's all based on what's in front. So this D is dictating how you're going to pronounce the ED. If this sound in front of ED is voiced, then you're going to have the D pronunciation. If this sound is a voiceless, you're going to have a T pronunciation. But if the word has a D or a T already before it, and in this case we do have a D, then you're going to go with this option. So here you've got the D already, so that's there. T or D is going to give you did, like the word did, D-I-D. As we link the word d to me, it will sound like reminded me. It becomes a kind of one linked process. And as we link E to of, In me of, similar to that W insertion, we do a Y insertion. I'll draw a Y, but in IPA it looks like a J. But think of it as yev. Reminded me of, rather than me of. The word of has a voiced V sound. So even though the spelling is an F, it's pronounced as of. And as the of links to you, it will sound like view. You is not stressed, but it's at the end of the statement. You don't typically see the reduction of words like to or you to a schwa in that position. So if you see it at the end, you can fully pronounce that ooh rather than yeah that you might otherwise see within a phrase. So let's practice this to get awesome at this American English pronunciation. I saw something that totally reminded me of you. Try for yourself. Now let's look at another sentence, a little question about trying a new place. Have you tried that new place on the corner? Let's look at the intonation or the musical element patterns of this sentence. It is a question. Does it start with a WH or no? No, it does not. It doesn't start with our how either. So we know it's going to be an upward or rising intonation. Have you tried that new place on the corner? So the rising occurs at the end. The stressed word is the word corner, and that's where you're seeing that low falling for the stress. The first syllable of corner. Try for yourself. Feel the music. Have you tried that new place on the corner? Now let's look at some pronunciation. The H is fully pronounced. You have that airflow. The V in have is a voiced sound. So if you're feeling no vibration, huff, on the V, it'll sound like an F. Then you know it's not voiced. Feel the friction. Have. It's louder and it has vibration. Otherwise, it will sound like the word half, which we don't want, of course, for clarity. The word you, since it's not stressed, can be reduced, meaning the vowels can be neutralized to a schwa sound. And if you're wondering, what the heck am I saying when I say schwa? That is the word. It's spelled really fun. Just means that the vowel is reduced, and it, I believe, means the absence of. So essentially, we're getting rid of the vowel as much as we can by making it quieter, shorter, not sung, and the vowel is neutralized to an So you may hear a y. Or you can think of it as you tried. So it's linked to the T. Have you tried? The TR is an R blend. These are particularly difficult for people. There is also a phenomenon that occurs in English where T to R can sometimes sound like a CH with an R. Tried. It's just something that naturally occurs and not something you would purposely put in. Once you begin to be a fast speaker, it will happen. But essentially, think of it as tried. I like to add that little element if you are a speaker that has trilled R's, meaning It sounds like that tongue flapping on the alveolar ridge. Tried. So looking at the anatomy, for the trill, what's happening is the tongue tip here is actually touching the alveolar ridge, or that space right behind the front top teeth. So it actually makes contact, and that's why it sounds like a D in a way, because that's what a D sounds like. That's the same tongue position. Same spot. It's just faster. So to avoid this tried, we can pull our tongue tip down and away. The way to create the R is to essentially do that by bunching the back of the tongue and curling the tip. That's going to give you that position. The sides of your tongue may touch your teeth, and that's fine, on the top molars, but the tongue tip should be pulled back and giving you a bit of a bowl shape to get the sound. Some people may curl only a slight little bit, and that will give them an R sound. For some, the retroflex or fully curled is what they need to do in their mouth to create an So there are lots of variations. And that's why some people can just kind of bunch their tongue back. Their whole tongue kind of turns into a very tight feeling at the back, and that will give them an R. Everyone's oral cavity or space in their mouth is a bit different. So that's why there are various ways to achieve an sound. My biggest goal, though, is do the easiest thing. So this tends to be my number one choice, especially if you trill your R's. The D in tried links to the TH, which is our voiced TH. We're going to put our tongue out and add our friction. Z, z. So sliding from a D to a TH means that our tongue tip is not going to release d, z, but rather slide. Z, z. If this is your palate and your front top tooth, your tongue is going to start here and slide along to outside of your mouth. Tried that. The T is followed by an N, a consonant. So that is why it's sounding like a stop sound. It's the glottal stop. That. New. There's the stopping in the glottis. The EW, there are some variations in dialect. Typically, though, it's N to oo. New. Rather than the new. N to the y to the oo. New. So typically, you're going to see this one. Place, this is a dark L, meaning that more of the sides and back of the tongue are harder up against the palate. So instead of using just the tip of your tongue, so more, if this is your palate, more of your tongue is going to press up to get that L, rather than just the tip of the tongue. So if this is your tongue, rather than just the tiny tip of your tongue making an L on the palate, you've got more of your tongue kind of making a good contact with the top. Place. The O in on is pronounced as an ah, open ah. Tongue tip for the N, on, only the tip. Then we have our voiced TH for the, and the vowel is going to reduce to a schwa. So instead of the corner, you'll hear the corner. And then we have two R's, both rhotic, so both curled. Corner, instead of kana or corner. So curling, corner. Practice for yourself to master this American English phrase. Now, before we get to the next phrase, I just want to add that if you have the goal to speak English clearly and feel confident when you're speaking, then join the over 16,000 students who've already achieved that goal and get the best-selling English pronunciation course by going to proactivepronunciation.com, or you can click the course link in the description below. Trust me, it is nothing like any other course you've ever seen before. Let's analyze another English sentence. I've been meaning to ask, how did that interview go? Let's take a look at the intonation of this two-part sentence. Which word stands out that has a bit more emphasis, stress, and is louder and higher pitched? I've been meaning to ask. The word meaning has the stress, and specifically the first syllable. There's a falling intonation at the end, meaning after the stressed syllable, everything is falling in pitch. How did that interview go? How did that interview go? Which word had the emphasis in it? How did that interview go? You see the falling intonation at the end and the stress mainly on interview. I've been meaning to ask, how did that interview go? The question form, how did that interview go? Even though it is a question, it starts with one of our WH questions, including how, who, what, when, where, why, and how. So when you see that, you do typically still hear a falling intonation. The rising intonation comes with typically yes-no questions. The word I and have been contracted to I've. The entire word have gets reduced down to a v sound. And this v is a voiced sound. So if you're producing an F, you'll feel no vibration. With voicing, you want to feel a vibration on your throat. I've. So this is your vibration. The V in I've links to the next word with no pause between. I've been. So V and B become almost one pronunciation. I've been. The double E in the word been or been is a free variation, meaning you have the choice because there are multiple pronunciations of this word. You can produce it as an E sound, been, or as an E sound, been, with the tongue lower. Totally your choice. The N and M link together, rather than been meaning with a pause of any kind. The M actually is produced after and somewhat during the N. The EA is produced as an E sound. Me. The ING will have that lower vowel meaning. The NG here is the back of the tongue nasality, using the back. And that NG links to the T, sounding like meaning to, with no pause. The word to, since it's followed by a vowel, you may not hear that reduction in to ta. You may hear the full oo, meaning to ask, to. And as it links to the a in ask, there is a rounded vowel linking to another vowel. We're going to insert this little W insertion to help link them. To ask, to ask, to ask. So it's like a wask. The word how, in some languages, some speakers will drop the H. In English, you want to pronounce that fully. How. The I in did is your lower vowel, keeping your tongue in that neutral position. The D is voiced. So feel that friction. Dead, dead, rather than deet. The TH in that is a voiced TH. Friction, voice, tongue out. That, did that, did that. For many, the transition from a D to a TH is just strange, I guess. It's an awkward transition. So D to TH, the way to avoid a really strong stop, did that, is to use a little trick I like to use. If we look at the mouth, the tongue for D is here. It's kind of touching along the alveolar ridge right here behind your top front teeth. For some people, their positioning might be a little further back, or some it might be fully on the tooth, but it's in this kind of region. For the D to TH, the next position is to put our tongue out. So position 2 is putting our tongue out. So instead of going from here to here in 2 locations, d, th, d, th, we can slide our tongue, th, keeping our voice on. Th, th, th. So you can actually slide your tongue from here along the tooth and then out. Th, th. The T in this word that is actually surrounded by 2 vowels. We have the A and the I for interview. So what happens with T's in this situation when they're unstressed is they're often pronounced as a flap T, sounding like a D. So it sounds like that interview. That interview. The 2 are linked together, that and interview. That interview. The I in interview is the lower I. Many people struggle with I with N. So it's because there's this nasality that's coming afterwards, makes it more difficult. So inner is much easier than interview. Now I can add the T in there, interview, or I can drop the T. That's up to you. This is a very common deletion in American English. When you see an N followed by a T or an N followed by a D. So here you see it. The T can drop, interview, or you can pronounce it interview. Similar to words like printer, printer. Check the printer. Go check the printer. Or international. 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 Very, very common in English. The ER, again, we have that curled rhotic R. In IPA, the R is generally upside down. This is that curled pronunciation. So inner, or inta versus inter. Hear that difference. And lastly, we're going to link the W to the G. There's no pause. Interview, go, interview, go, interview, go. Keep your motor or your voice motor running as you link those 2 words. So let's practice together and master this American English sentence. I've been meaning to ask, how did that interview go? How did that interview go? Try it for yourself to master the sentence. Now, if you found anything in this video helpful, please repay me with a like and share it with someone who you know might also benefit. That little click helps me to continue to give you and others all the free lessons that you want. So thank you so much for doing that. Let's try another American English statement. You will not believe what happened last Thursday. Let's look at the intonation or the music of the phrase. You will not believe what happened last Thursday. Or, you will not believe what happened last Thursday. You will not believe what happened last Thursday. So you can hear that I could stress here. In this case, if I'm stressing this portion of the word believe, that's the part I want my listener to really focus on. I want them to think about how much they won't believe it. I could also stress not, or I could stress Thursday, depending on what I feel is most important to get across to my listener. So maybe what really matters is the day. You will not believe what happened to me last Thursday. So it really is something you can choose, but usually there's one word that has primary stress and it helps our listener get our meaning. So we're going to go with believe here. It's not a hard and fast rule, but typically 2-syllable words, when they're nouns, the stress is on the first syllable. And when they're verbs, they tend to happen on the second syllable. So here you have believe as your verb, it's going to have the stress in that second syllable for two-syllable words. Will and not are typically contracted in speech. We like to speak as quickly as possible if we can get away with efficiency. So will and not turns to won't. The word believe, as we've discussed already, the stress is in leave. The BE is a prefix, meaning it's something that we can add to many words, like because or before. And this prefix, since it's unstressed, the vowel can be, that was weird, can be reduced to a schwa. So it can sound like ba, believe, rather than believe. Believe, believe. Again, with because, you can say because, or before, you can say before. I went there before because I had to. You won't believe it. The V in believe is voiced. So feel the friction in your throat. Believe, believe. Here, the A, many people who are learning English will see that as an ah or even an ah. This is a strange word, and we actually pronounce it as an very neutral. What? What? Wa. Right? So that is not so much an ah open vowel, but neutral closed jaw. Wa. This T is followed by another consonant. So what happens here is it turns into a glottal T. What? So there's a strong stopping in the glottis to create an actual audible sound. What happened? In the word happened, we have two syllables, hap and pinned. Happened, the stress is in the first syllable. Or I could do my stressed symbol there. The vowel here can be reduced to a schwa. So instead of happened, as many might expect, it's reduced to happened, pun. Think of it like P to N right away, or you can think of it like a schwa. Just means the vowel is so quick, it's almost gone, and it's neutralized to pun. Happen. Here you have the ED, so you have the choice. What do we do here? We have a voiced N. So that's going to dictate if the ED is voiced, voiceless, or id. So here we have a voiced, that means the ED is produced as just D. Happened. Pinned. What happened? Rather than happened. The A in last, this is the symbol for ah. Instead of ah, this is ah. Ah involves a little bit more of a smiling or horizontal lip position. So if you say lost, like I lost something, it's a very British pronunciation, would be like lost year, right? So this one here is ah in American English. Want to add a bit more of a smile. Ah. Last, lost. For lost, this is your ah. The lips are not as retracted. Ah. And I wish I had an example here, but this is the ah. Ah would involve a little bit more of a smiley position. Ah. When you see an S, T, or three consonants right beside each other, and if there's ever a T in the middle, T's and D's do something interesting. It's very difficult to produce the S and T and TH all together. So when there's three and the T or D is in the middle, you will sometimes hear that T delete. So last Thursday is a very common pronunciation instead of last Thursday. Last Thursday, last Thursday, last Thursday. So the T stopping kind of deletes altogether. Here we have our TH. It's a voiceless TH. Blowing with airflow. Instead of Thursday, Thursday. The UR is pronounced as the here. So instead of or, just ER. THER. Think of it like that. Again, use that bunched, pulled back tongue and retroflex or curl the tongue tip to get that thur. If you find your tongue tip creating a trill, it kind of sounds like Thursday. If that's you, pull your tongue a little lower and effortfully lower away from the alveolar ridge or the palate. Thursday. The S is pronounced as a Z. This also occurs in Tuesday and Wednesday. These are not S's. They are pronounced as a voiced sound. Thursday. And there you have it. You won't believe what happened last Thursday. Practice for yourself to master this American English phrase. So let's take a look at another very common phrase used in American English. How has your week been so far? First, let's look at the intonation or the music of the speech. How's your week been so far? How has your week been so far? A typical pronunciation would involve one of those words as stressed. Do you see how there's a bit of a stress or emphasis here as the stressed or primary stressed word in the phrase? Now, of course, you do have a choice. If you're speaking to someone and you're talking to someone right now and then you see someone new and you want to emphasize your week as opposed to his week, you might say, how has your week been so far? So you can stress that. This is just most typical, that's all. This is a question, but it starts with one of our WH questions. So who, what, when, why, how, where, all these questions, the H for how is included. So even though it's a question, you're still going to see that falling intonation. The H in how is fully pronounced. It has that aspiration. How, not deleted. Ow. The words how and has can typically be contracted with other words. So how has can sound like house. This essentially is only produced as one sound, a Z sound. Think of it like house. As the Z links to the Y, we have an opportunity for a potential assimilation. Z to Y can sound like a zh sound. That's the symbol in IPA. It's that sound you might hear in measure or beige. It's like a ZH sound. It's like an SH, but with your voice on. This can occur. You don't have to do this. It's often just what happens naturally when you transition quickly from a Z to a Y. Z, Z, Z. If air keeps coming and you're doing this quickly, you may hear it. The word your is unstressed. It's not our primary stressed word. So this can be reduced to a neutralized This is our R, so be careful to ensure that your tongue is curled. So again, for the R, you want your back of the tongue to bunch in a far back position. The sides of your tongue tend to actually go up between the side top molars. And the tongue tip should not be near this alveolar ridge, but rather curled in this retroflex position. Yer. The W in weak, you want to hear your lips are in that rounded position and protruded. Ooh, ooh, ooh. It's a rounded lips if you're wondering what the heck that is. But you want, if this was your nose, you want your lips to be forward in that rounded position. And there's your chin. You don't want your teeth to be friction with your top lip. Ooh, 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 weak. If you struggle with this sound, you can think of it like an ooh sound. Weak, weak. And get your lips out that way. The K in weak links to the B in bin to sound like kbin, kbin, weak bin, weak bin. That's going to be a very quick linking. The word bean or bin is a free variant. You can use whichever one you want, E or E. The N in bins links to the S. It's going to sound like nso, nso, binso, binso, like one, binso. And then we have the R, vocalic R. Again, rhotic R. So we want to curl. We're going from an ah to an So you must feel a full open vowel, ah, ah, and then curl. So you really do want two sounds. R, R, far, so far. Feel your tongue tip kind of curl back. So that's how we have, how's your week been so far? How's your week been so far? Practice for yourself to master this very common American English phrase. How's your week been so far? If you want to learn the secrets of the American English accent with insights you just cannot get anywhere else, then join the over 16,000 others who already have access and are achieving their goals. Go to proactivepronunciation.com, or you can go to the description and get it there. Let's do another phrase, very common in an American English conversation. Anything exciting going on? Let's listen to the intonation of this phrase. Anything exciting going on? This is a yes-no question. It doesn't start with our who, what, when. So this is a rising intonation. Anything exciting going on? Anything exciting going on? When I say rising intonation, it just means that at the end, it rose. It's all about what happens after the stress. Going up is rising. The stressed syllable flips in opposite for questions, yes, no questions when it goes up. So this stress word is going to go down to up. Exciting. There is your stress. And everything from the primary stress location on goes up. There's your rising element. The A in anything is actually pronounced as eh. Think of it like eh. This is the same vowel you might hear in the word red. Red. Next, we have our voiceless TH sound in anything. Anything. Tongue out, blowing, rather than inside your mouth and stopping. Anything, anything. Here we have the ing with your lower pronunciation rather than ing, or many people will say in. This is a little bit of a dialect difference. I do hear it obviously, but typically you'll hear that with the back of the tongue for ing, anything. The ng links to the next word. Anything exciting. Anything exciting. There's no pause. The X is pronounced as a KS. X. Exciting. I guess including that C. exciting, exciting. The T here is surrounded by vowels. It's also not part of our stressed syllable, so it's an unstressed T surrounded by vowels. It's going to sound like a flap T, and that will sound like a D. Exciting, ding, ding, instead of exciting, exciting. Here again, we have the lower I with the NG at the back of the tongue. Exciting. The NG links to going, going, going. So feel how the NG is here, back of the tongue. The G is also produced there, so you can stop where the tongue is. Going. But there's no pause between the two. They kind of become one. Again, another I with an NG. So low I, pull the tongue, the back of the tongue up, going, going. The NG links to the next word again, sounding like on, 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 going on, going on. The O in on is very difficult for some ESL speakers because you see an O, you think O. So you'll hear own. But this will sound too much like the word O-W-N, as in I own this pen. Own. We want this to sound like ah, ah, a little bit more of an open ah, 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 ah. So in terms of lip position, we want this one instead of this one. O, ah, ah. It has more of an open jaw. See how the jaw is open? This is closed. The lips are open. These lips are in a small circle. And finally, we end with an N, a true N, a nasal. So we have on. The tongue tip is created with a nasal. N for N. On. Depending on your first language, some people have a really hard time differentiating an N versus an NG. So what happens is they're producing something in the middle. An NG uses that back of the tongue touching against the palate. An N uses the tongue tip touching against the palate. Either way, we are closing the airway so that the air can come out the nose. For an N, it closes here, and for an NG, the air closes here, can't come out, so it comes out this way. That's what creates a different sound. If the middle of your tongue is producing kind of both, for both, this is the main issue people have. And what I mean by that is the middle of the tongue is going up and closing somewhere here. If that's you, then an N and an NG all sound the same, but they're neither an N or an NG. They're just, it's a different sound. So what we want to do is compare the difference. N, 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 la, 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 n, 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 la, la, la. And then use syllables. So you might say in, n, 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 and feel your tongue tip, and then say in, in the back of the tongue. And then try with different vowels. On, n, 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 and then try with different words. When, n, 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 like win, W-I-N, versus wing, wing, W-I-N-G. So of course for this, we're using the tip of the tongue. On, going on. Anything exciting going on? First, let's try a slow version. Anything exciting going on? And a little faster. Anything exciting going on? Practice for yourself to master this phrase in American English. Let's analyze another English sentence. Let's start with the intonation. The intonation is the musical pattern of the phrase. In this case, it's a question, but it's not a question that starts with a WH word, like who, what, where, when, why, or how. So this is essentially a yes-no question. So that is why you're going to see a raising intonation at the end. There will be one word that's stressed a little more than the others. Did you get up to anything fun over the weekend? So there you see that raising at the end. There's one word that stands out a little more than the others. The word's vowel is stretched out, it's said a little longer, and the vowel is said with a different pitch. Did you get up to anything fun over the weekend? The word fun is stressed. And therefore, that's going to stick out. If it was a statement and we'd have a falling intonation, the stressed word would be higher in pitch. In this case, because it's flipped, it's a question, we're going to go lower first before we go up at the end. Now let's take a look at some pronunciation elements of this sentence. The sounds TH, R, and the I vowel are the top sounds that are going to affect your clarity in the American English accent, and they happen to be 3 of the most difficult sounds that people struggle with when they're learning how to speak English with an American accent. In the word did, the vowel is the vowel. In IPA, this vowel is represented with an uppercase I. If you have an issue with substituting an E sound, since that's often the vowel that most closely relates to the vowel in other languages, if they don't have this sound, will typically be the substituted sound. So if that's you, what you can do is lower your tongue. The D in this word is a voiced consonant. This is a sound that people typically will turn off the voice. If you hear the d voicing, then you know you said this word correctly. If you feel your throat and you feel a quiet no buzzing on your throat, then you know that your voice was not on, and it will sound like dit. So keeping voice on, did. When there is a D transitioning to a Y, something very interesting happens called an assimilation. This means that as our tongue is transitioning from a D to a Y, something additional happens where we add a j sound, or it occurs naturally by talking quicker. So did and you will sound like did you. Did you? In IPA, the symbol for j is this. Did you? Did you? The word you is unstressed. So in this case, the vowel can be reduced. And it can be reduced so much, it is almost essentially deleted to a schwa sound. A schwa sound has the upside down E symbol in IPA, or the International Phonetic Alphabet, and the sound is a quick little This happens when the word you is unstressed and typically has a consonant after it. The T in get is surrounded by 2 vowels, the vowel in front and the vowel behind. So what happens to the T in this situation is it turns into what we call a flap T, or a lingual flap T. Essentially, it sounds like a D. So it will sound like get up, rather than get up. And this is the symbol for a flap T. The vowel in up is the caret vowel. This is not as usually substituted with an ah sound. So if you find yourself saying op, what we can do is close our jaw to a more neutral closed position, and keeping our tongue neutral, rather than open and tongue low, up. This is that difference that you might hear in the word cop versus cup. The word cop has that ah sound, open jaw, versus cup has the sound. This word too is an unstressed word. It's not the word that's being stressed or emphasized. And it happens to usually be reduced to a schwa, that vowel ta. However, in this case, since there is a vowel next to it, you tend to hear a full pronunciation of tu rather than the reduction. So you'll hear a tu. As the oo sound links to the next word, ooh anything, to anything, there is what we call a W or rounding insertion to help us link and sound a little faster and a little more fluent. So instead of to anything with a pause, the W helps to link to anything. Now we have our TH sound in anything. This is a voiceless TH. That's the symbol for a voiceless TH. We want to put our tongue between our teeth with an actual blowing airflow. Anything. Most people who struggle with TH have an issue with not so much their tongue position, although that can be an issue. It's generally that the airflow is not enough. So even if your tongue was out between your teeth, if there's no airflow, if your tongue touches your tooth, you can basically produce a T. It can still sound like anything without airflow. So blow like you're blowing out a candle, and that will fix the issue. Anything. The I in ing is also that lower pronunciation. Although there are many variations in dialect in American English, in this case, there may be some pronunciations of ing with the high E pronunciation, but typically you'll hear the lower relaxed sound. The last sound, ng, is a nasal sound, meaning the air comes out our nose. So that means that the air actually comes out through the trachea, in this case the epiglottis is up and out the nasal passage. So that's coming through the nose rather than through the mouth. For an ng sound, we're not using the tip of our tongue like n to create that nasal sound. We're using the back of our tongue. So that means that this portion of the tongue contacts the palate or the velum, and that is going to close off the back of the tongue to allow the air to just pass through the nose. So the ng sound has this symbol, like a little hangy N, and that is the back of the tongue. Anything. As the ng links to fun, there is no pause. Anything fun, anything fun. The R, as in in the word over, is a rhotic R, and it involves the tongue tip curling back and the whole tongue pulling back in the mouth. Over. If you're pronouncing a non-rhotic R, meaning it sounds more like a vowel, ova, this generally means that your tongue tip is not curled enough and pulled back enough. If, on the other hand, you produce a trill, which means the tongue tip is touching the alveolar ridge, it creates a little sound. Over. If that's the case, then your tongue tip can be pulled lower so it does not touch the palate. In this example, the R tongue position should be bunched and curled in the back and quite high, where the tongue tip curls and the whole tongue is in a back position. But notice, there is no contact right here by the alveolar ridge or the palate. There's a space. The tongue has a curled formation in the tip, but not touching. Again, if you have that kind of non-rhotic R, then the issue really isn't that your tongue tip is touching here, but the issue is that your tongue is flat. So there is no curl that's giving that formation. To fix it, we're going to pull our tongue back in the mouth, high in the back, and curl the tongue tip as well. In the word the, we have a voiced TH with our tongue out between our teeth with the blowing, just like with a voiceless, but the difference is our voice is vibrating. The. You should feel air vibrating against the tip of your tongue. The vowel in E is reduced to a schwa. Resulting in a very quick sound because the word is not stressed. The W sound is quite difficult for some, especially languages that don't have any differentiation between V and W. So weekend, what's happening is the lips for W are not protruded enough. Ooh, ooh. And if the lips are not protruded enough, they will actually stay close to the teeth and also create a vibration. Ooh, 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 like a friction. So it's neither a W or a V where you're biting your lip. Ooh, 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 ooh. It's like a whistling vibration on the lips. So this will create confusion for English listeners because we don't know if it's a W or a V we're hearing. So for a W, you want to fully round your lips ooh, and protrude them forward so there's no friction on your teeth. Ooh. Weekend. So practice for yourself to master this very common English sentence. Did you get up to anything fun over the weekend? If you found this helpful and you want to supercharge your skills even more with English pronunciation secrets like this, check out this video. It'll blow your mind.
Getting whipped cream everywhere. This is not good.